This process is so simple. There's a lot of scripts out there online. There's a lot of teams that have different processes. This is what works for me. This has helped me sell 82 policies in 1 month before. Man, what's going on, guys? Today we're going to be talking about a final expense life insurance sales process, the process that I use, the script that I follow. And then at the end of today's video, I'm going to give you guys the 3 biggest tips to be able to actually implement this process and actually use it to be profitable and close business selling life insurance over the phone or in home. All right, guys, so we're going to get right into it. My sales process follows this. It's my intro. I go medical questions to understand how healthy they are. And then I'm jumping into credibility. I want them to know who I am. And then I'm gonna go to my why section. I'm gonna just try to understand their whole situation. I like to do then an overview of their situation. So just repeat back to them what they've already told me. And then I'm gonna go into my presentation, gonna talk about the product, the company. We're gonna decide which option makes the most sense for them. This process is so simple. There's a lot of scripts out there online. There's a lot of teams that have different processes. This is what works for me. This has helped me sell 82 policies in 1 month before. Final expense stuff, it's helped me write a ton of business with final expense and help a lot of families. So I hope that it helps you guys too. So I'm gonna get right into it. My intro is so simple. In the beginning part of my script, I like to ask 3 different questions. The questions are confirming maybe a piece of information that I have on my lead sheet, so a date of birth, an address, something like that. I like to say, are you just looking around for yourself or for you and a loved one? Or I'll ask, is this just for final expense coverage, or did you want to leave a little bit extra for the family? The reason that I do that is I'm just trying to basically get them to admit that they filled this out so I can continue on. If they object at that point, I overcome their objection, I ask another one of those questions, and then I move on, right? So my intro is just, I'm gonna act like I'm calling a Bob, right? Or Susie. We like, Susie, hey Susie, this is Tyler. I got some info that you had put in looking at information on different life insurance programs. Were you just looking around for yourself or for you and a loved one, right? Something like that. If they object, again, I'm gonna overcome it and I'm gonna ask another one of those questions. If they just say, yeah, I was looking for me and my husband, or just myself, no worries at all. There's gonna be over 35 different companies that we can take a look at. Now, Susie, were you just searching for final expense coverage or did you wanna leave a little bit more for each other? Yeah, we wanted to leave a little bit more if we could. Okay, all right. So like I said, there's 35 different companies. What we'll do is we'll look at your situation, we'll see what makes the most sense, and we'll talk about what kind of options you might be able to qualify for. To be able to distinguish which company is going to make the most sense and which product, because there is so many, any kind of medical diagnoses or ailments, and they'll say, yes, no, and then I'll say, what prescription medications do you take? Or how many prescription medications do you take, excuse me? And they'll say, I take 3. And I'm like, okay, what are those for? Because we know those are showing up on their medical check, right? And then I'll go through the list and I'll say any kind of cancer, kidney disease, liver disease, COPD, critical, chronic, terminal illnesses in the past, 10 years, right? Things like that. That's when I go and I ask all those medical questions. I'll do height and weight, and then I will do smoker, non-smoker, right? And that gives me a ballpark idea of what company I can go with, right? And that's enough information for me most times to be able to have like an 80%, 90% chance to be able to figure it out. I'm gonna give you guys a quick tip here. In your medical questions, I see a lot of our new agents, they'll read through them, and it's not their fault, they don't know. So that's why I'm making this video to teach you guys, right? And I think that if we can mix up those medical questions, like any kind of medical diagnosis or ailments, and they say, no, right? And then it's, hey, and who did you want to leave for a beneficiary? It's a pattern interrupt. I'm gonna not go through and just have them answer question after question after question after question after question. That's just yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, yes. I'm 5'10", I'm 180 pounds, right? I'm not just gonna have them answer these one-worded answers over and over. I want them to lean back in. I want them to be a part of my conversation. It's called a pattern interrupt. I'm gonna interrupt the pattern with another question, something that's important to them. And that important thing is their beneficiary. So for me, whenever I get halfway through my medical questions, especially if I can feel like they're annoyed or they don't want to be on the phone, because that happens sometimes. They're like, why are you asking me all this stuff? This thing said it wasn't going to be underwritten, right? There was going to be no medical exam. People say that stuff. So if anyone ever says that, pattern interrupt, man. Get them more engaged in the conversation. Get them to lean back into it because they're just falling out of being interested because you're just peppering questions at them. Some people, they'll just let you go all the way through the process and you can get all their medical information and move right along. Some people, they're not as into it. So I like to throw a pattern interrupt in there, ask them who their beneficiary is gonna be. Maybe I'll even ask them, have you been looking around at this for a while now? And they'll say yes, and I'll say how long? 18 months. Okay, are you a smoker, non-smoker? I'm just gonna put that in my back pocket for later. Okay, that's all I'm gonna do is put that in my back pocket for later. I'm not gonna dive into all that with them at that point in the process. After we're done medical questions, again, I'm going to credibility. I want them to know who I am. Hey, grab a pen, Susie. I wanna make sure you know who you're gonna be working with moving forward. My name is Tyler. I've been licensed for a couple of years now, right? Hey, I want you to write down my national producer number, and I want you to take down my personal cell phone number as well. It's gonna be the same number that my mom calls me on. Now, I'm not like Jake from State Farm. You don't have to call any insurance carriers or wait on hold or reach out to some company, some corporate company. This is gonna be my direct line, so feel free to call and text me whenever. I'm here for you if you need anything, okay? Or I'm gonna just try to make them feel comfortable with me. I want them to know we're on the same team. I'm just trying to help them find the solution, trying to help them get put in the right position. That's my intent on this call. And your frequency will change when you speak to people like that. People can feel that you're not after their money. After I give them a national producer number, personal cell phone number, my name, I'm gonna jump into understanding the situation. And I know that you said you wanted to cover final expense coverages, right? Did you wanna go cremation or burial? I'm gonna give you guys a series of questions here that I asked to get a good understanding of what direction they might be going, right? And to get them to start talking about their problems and issues so I can provide a solution. That's the goal of this section. Get them to explain their problems enough so it's super, super reasonable that we get something put in place today. So they're like, man, I need something, as well as make it really logical for them, make it easy for them to say yes to. Okay, but we're gonna try to make it their idea that they're gonna commit to this. We're not gonna tell them that you need to commit. We're gonna ask them questions to get them to decide that on their own, okay? Here are a couple of my questions just to crack them open, to see to figure out what they're looking for, figure out how I can solve their problem. I'm gonna say, hey, final expense coverage is awesome. Glad that we're taking a look at that stuff. Most people wait until it's too late, so I'm glad to see that you're looking around to take care of this while you still have the opportunity to. Now, I want you to understand this process is really simple, and I just wanna get an understanding of what you're looking around for so I can best serve you at the highest level. Now, first off, final expenses. Did you wanna go cremation or burial? Burial, okay, how much does that cost? $15,000? Okay, understood. Side note, I don't want to tell them how much it is, I want them to tell me, because then that tees up me to show them a certain coverages that are exactly what they said that they're looking for. I don't want them to be looking around at cremation, but I never asked, so I show them a $40,000 whole life policy. It's going to take care of their cremation and final expenses, but it's not, they didn't want 40, they wanted 5. So I want to ask them questions to understand what they're looking for. So jump back into it here. It's gonna cost $15,000 for the burial. Okay, who's your beneficiary? You said your daughter, right? Your daughter's Mary. Mary would be coming out to, she'd be sitting across from the funeral director having to pay for this, is that right? Yes, that's correct. Okay, would she be able to cover that right now? No, she wouldn't. Is that a position that you wanna leave her in? No, okay. Most people that we work with wanna put the financial burden that comes with passing on the insurance company rather than a loved one. Is that what you're looking for as well? Yes? Yeah, I don't want to leave that burden on my family, right? If they ever say burden, that problem, leave that bill, you say, how do you mean by burden? How do you mean by bill? It'll get them to talk one layer deeper on it. Well, I don't want them to come out of pocket. What would that look like? Do they have anything now? Is there anything in place? Is there anything set up at the moment? There's not? Okay. Most people that we work with don't have anything when we get in touch with them, and I want to make sure that we don't do anything that's going to put you guys in a tight spot. Most people we work with are on Social Security, retirement, or disability income. Are you on one of those 3? Yes? Okay, which one? You're on Social Security, you're on retirement? Okay. Most people we work with sit on an income level anywhere from $900 to $1,500 a month. Are you inside that window, or are you a little bit higher or lower? I'm lower, I'm higher, okay. And how much is that a month that you're getting? And whatever they say, doesn't matter. Perfect, you're in the same bucket as most people that we work with, right? I'm just gonna try to make them feel like they fit the mold of what we always deal with. All the people that we help are in the exact same situation that you're in. So now that I have an understanding of how much money they make, is that money going into a bank account or onto a direct express card? Us at Real Financial, we have access to a bunch of different carriers. Some of those carriers don't take cards, some of those carriers only take bank accounts, so I need to know that information inside the application. So I'm gonna ask that question in my process. Is that going into a bank account? Is that onto a direct express card? It's going into a bank account? Understood. Right? And then I'm gonna go in and whatever area was the most sensitive to them that we've gone over, right? Whatever they've told me that makes the most sense, I wanna just ask more questions about that, right? So maybe it's, hey, right now, is your daughter currently living in the same state as you? Does she live in the same town as you? Is she going to have to travel to be able to put your funeral and final expenses together? right? Yes. Okay, well, we want to make sure that she doesn't have any kind of financial headache during that time. Is that right? Yes. Have you ever been in a situation where you've had to come out of pocket to pay for someone else's burial? What was that experience like? I'm going to ask some extra questions there just to get them to explain to me more of their situation, number one. I want them to feel understood and heard, number two. And number three, I'm trying to get them to I'm trying to dig into it, because at this point in time, if they've told me all these things, it really isn't a matter of whether or not they're going to get it. It's just a matter of what policy we're going to get that makes sense for you, okay? And so I'm just asking a couple extra questions. I'm trying to get them to tip over that, lean over the fence of, I've been looking around, to I need to make a decision, I need something today, okay? And part of that is going to be our job. So I have one thing that I do specifically at this point in my conversation is whenever they get to this point where they tell me all these reasons that they need it, they tell me all these things that they need, right? There's two things here that are vital to my final expense process that helps people make a commitment. The first thing is going to be to use the trial close. I'll give you guys that in a second. The second thing is to overview their situation back to them. Okay, so I'm not just going to go into my presentation and give them some numbers. I'm going to slow down here. This is a point in the conversation where they might be feeling a little bit emotional. No one's asked them these questions. They feel like they're spilling a lot of personal information. I'm going to make them feel really comfortable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit there and say, hey, I want to make sure that I'm understanding your situation properly. Tell me if this is about right. And I'm going to say everything that they told me, I'm going to repeat back to them. I'm going to say all the things that they told me back to them. Hey, it looks like you're 67 years old. You currently don't have any final expenses put in place, final expense coverage in place. If something was to happen to you, your daughter would have to come out of pocket and pay for that. And right now, that's not a position that you want to leave her in. You're on 2 prescription medications, and I'm sure that you know your health is only typically going to go down as we get older, and these rates are only going to get more expensive as we do get older. So we want to make sure we get something put in place sooner rather than later, which is something that you told me. And you're currently retirement on Social Security. You're making $1,200 a month. You want to make sure that no one's coming out of pocket, because you've had to come out of pocket for your aunt's funeral, and that wasn't a position that you wanted her to leave you in, and it was really tough for you to get through that. And you want to make sure you get something put in place because you love your daughter and you don't want her to have any headaches. Is all that about right? And at that point, when they say yes, it is, you're getting them coverage. Your attitude is, I'm getting you coverage, because you have to help them decide to get the coverage, okay? Because what happens most times when we don't run this whole process correctly is you get to the end, they see the numbers, and they say, thanks, but I want to think about it. And what happens is you didn't help them commit to the decision. You asked them some questions, you gave them some information, and great job. The next person that calls tomorrow just teed them up to have an easy answer. But now that they're going to feel so understood, so heard. They're going to feel like you totally understand their entire situation now, because you just repeated all the things that came out of their mouth to them. Most agents aren't actually listening to these people when they call. So if you can be the difference maker for them, if you can understand their situation, if you can ask them the questions to get them to feel like they're being taken care of specifically for their situation. Something that I'll tell these people is, we're going to customize and structure a plan that makes sense for you to solve the things that you're looking for. And nobody knows that situation better than you, so I want to make sure that I get to know it. And that way that I can help you get what you want. It's what they want, right? They're looking around for it. They want the coverage. So we're going to use what they're saying. We're going to repeat that back to them so they can feel understood and heard. And then I'm going to say for my trial close now, once they say yes, that is my situation. Or they'll add on to it most times. They'll say, and this, and this, and this, and this. And then I say, okay, Susie, since it isn't a matter of whether or not we're going to get the coverage for you, we'll take a look at 2 options, maybe 3 options, so you can choose which one will make the most sense for you. But I know that it's not a matter of whether or not we're going to get it, right? And they'll say, yes, Tyler, that's right. Okay, here's the company that we're going to look at. I want you to know they've been around for over 100 years. They're A-rated. They're incredibly high rated by AM's Best, and they're incredibly dependable and reliable, right? Here's the product. It's going to be a permanent product. Your coverage amount is never going to change. This is a policy that's going to stay in place forever. This is how much coverage we're going to be looking at: 10,000, 15,000, 20,000, which making this up, right? And we're gonna look at these 3 options because this is what most people in your situation go with, but I want you to choose which one works for you because nobody knows your budget and situation better than you. Now, Susie, I want you to understand that most people, they get at least something put in place, even if it's lower than the amount that they wanted, because we can always come back and add on more. Now, I'll give you an example, Susie. I just talked to Mary the other day, and Mary ended up wanting to get $40,000 in place, but she could only really right now get $20,000 put in place. So we started out with the 20, so she could lock in those rates. That way there's something put in place for her family members, and if something happens to her, that'll pay out no matter what, immediately. It's immediate coverage. And she's gonna come back and add on $20,000 more next year when she has a little bit more money saved up and she's ready for that. Does that make sense? Okay, so here's option 1, it's gonna be $10,000, option 2 is $15,000, option 3 is $20,000. Option 1 is gonna be, $65, option 2 is gonna be $80, and option 3 is gonna be $100. Which one of these 3 makes the most sense for you? And whenever they say, first one, understood, I'm gonna pull up the request for coverage here. Can you verify the spelling of your first and last name? I'm writing to the app. I'm not sitting there hanging out about it. I don't want them to get timid. I don't want them to get cold feet. I'm helping them make a decision, so I have to be the decisive one for them, because if they've been looking around for it, especially if you ask someone how long they've been looking and they say 18 months, if they say 30 months, if they say 5 years, you got to help them make the decision because they're not going to get anything. Okay, and I'm saying this to you guys because I've had death claims where people have been looking around for 10 years. And then I help them get something and they die. And then their family members call me crying because they're so grateful that I helped them get something put in place. I just had a death claim like last week, and the guy was looking around. I mean, he was almost 80. I think he was like in his 80s, or he was almost maxed out from being able to qualify for coverage because he was so old. But I helped him get something, and his family got $20,000 sent to him. $20,000. They didn't have to come out of pocket for their burial. They didn't have to come out of pocket to take care of any of those final expenses. And they're so grateful. So I'm telling you guys this because it isn't just about selling to make money. It's about selling to help these people make a decision. Like, they need that. So use these skills to help people decide to move forward to get the coverage, okay? I really like telling a story there at the end to make them feel okay about going less than what they want. I'm gonna give you guys a tip. When you ask people in the why section about their income, if they say $1,000 a month, $10,000 a month, whatever they say, I usually try not to give them something that's going to be more than 10% of their income, payment-wise, because I don't want to have chargebacks, and I want to make sure this is actually going to stay in place long-term for them. So if someone's like, they're really emotional right now and they want to make an emotional decision, so they're wanting to get way more coverage than they can actually afford, it's not going to stay in place long-term. Because in 6 months, when it's not at top of mind to them, they're not going to feel as emotional about keeping it in place, and they'll probably want to drop it down or cancel it. So I want to help people make decisions that are long-term going to be beneficial for them, and it's my job to do that as their agent, as their professional, right? That's someone that's actually teaching them and educating them and putting them in the right spot. And I wanted to give you guys a couple of tips here as well. So the first thing that I want to give you guys is tip-wise to be able to implement this script and process to help you guys make sales is you have to be confident. And I think that it's just so important that you understand that you really are helping people. And that's going to be the second point, is to actually help people. Help people make a decision. Okay, help people get this coverage, because most of these people aren't like you and me. They're not people that are in their situation where they don't have anything saved up. Their family member is going to have to come out of pocket. They don't have any insurance. They don't know the value of insurance. They don't know the value of these programs. And they really do need it. If you've never run an in-home appointment, then you have a different perspective. But when I started to do, I ran some in-homes a year and a half ago, and I really realized these people are not in the position where, like, their family's not in the position, and they're not in the position where they're going to be able to comfortably pay for these things. So they need us. They really do need us to help them get something, because they don't have the courage to make the decision on their own. So we have to give them the courage to do it. Okay, so number one is the confidence. So I'm going to practice my script. I'm going to practice my objections so I can speak clearly, so I can ask good questions. The second thing is to make sure that you're helping people. You come from a frame of helping rather than trying to get paid, and you'll see that you make a lot more sales because you're helping people and you're not worried about the money. Humans are really good at intuitively sniffing out who's real, who's fake, you know, hundreds of years ago, it was like, is this person trying to be my friend so they can steal my supplies from my tribe and like run away back to their tribe and like take my food, right? It was survival, right? Our instincts are really good to sniff out who's real, who's fake, who's actually trying to help us. So help these people. They know, they can feel it, okay? And the third thing is, this is a volume game, okay? You're going to have to make phone calls. For us at Real Financial, full-time agents dialing final expense leads make 300 calls a day. 300 calls leads you to, you know, 10 to 25 quality conversations a day most times, and 10 to 25 quality conversations, sometimes more, and then you're getting 4 to 5 presentations a day, which leads you to 1 to 2 sales a day minimum. But it's a volume game. You got to present to a lot of people. You got to make a lot of phone calls. You got to get a lot of quality conversations. You got to talk to people, okay? And I don't say that because I'm trying to say that like our top agents close like 50% plus on their closing percentage, but it's like, you know, when you start, it's like baseball, right? In baseball, you bat at a 30% batting average and you're in the freaking all-star game, man. Like, you're the best of the best. And 70% of the time they get out. 70% of the time they actually don't get on base. So they're not accomplishing the goal 70% of the time, but 30% of the time they do. So they just had to change their perspective from, when I was in school, a 90 was a good grade on a test, but now what's successful in my industry and my profession is 30%. I got to bat at 30. So for us, like 20% closing ratio is still profitable. Even if you get told no 4 out of 5 times, you're still profitable. Okay, so like change your frame from like, it's like, this doesn't work because I got told no 3 times today. Hit 5, you should get 1 out of 5 typically on average. The better you get, the more your percent goes up. But like, just get used to making phone calls. The volume game. Get used to making phone calls. Get used to talking to people. Get used to presenting to people. Get used to getting told no. It's cool. It's fine. I got a whole list of these people. I'm gonna make another phone call, right? It's a part of the game. Guys, I really hope that this video helped you. This is something that changed my income and really helped me start making more money. It started to help me you know, move down the path that I've been able to walk now. And this was really the beginning stages of it. So if you can master this industry is an ocean. It has so much to offer you guys. I hope that this video helps you. And if it does, we'll see you in the next video, guys. Appreciate you guys watching. Man, if this is the video that helped you out today, I'm gonna place a couple other of my videos right here for you guys to watch. It's exactly what you're gonna need to see following today's video, guys. See you in the next one.